Hi there, it's me, Farmer J. Welcome back to the farm. Today we're going to take a look at a list of mods that existed in Farming Simulator 19 that I believe should be converted to Farming Simulator 22, as these were my favorite and I consider most essential mods. When 22 came, I made this list before 22 came out, and when 22 came out, I noticed that several mods on my list were already included. The Workshop tab, which allows you to take, say, a vehicle in a seeder to the workshop, tab through it, and repair the seeder and the tractor, for example, without having to place each item in front of the workshop, repair it, move it, then drive the next item to the workshop, repair it, and move on. In 22, it worked like this. You could tap between, in this case, the tractor trailer and the trailer, repair it, tab back to the cab, repair that, yes, and get in a vehicle, and you can see that the repair state is back to 100%. 22 works very similarly, except when you drive, let's say, a tractor and a seeder up to the repair point, it gives you a list you can scroll through. So you repair item 1, scroll down to item 2, repair that. When both items are repaired, or all items are repaired, you simply get back in and drive away. Like I said, a lot easier than having to put each item on the repair pad separately, fix each one, and so on. The variable capacity mod is the next mod I want to talk about. In 19, this mod allowed you to adjust the size of your bales. Well, it didn't actually change the physical size, but it changed the capacity. So you could go from 4,000 liters to 6,000 liters to 8,000 liters. 22, that feature's already included. Anyone who's been playing 22 knows that most balers are already capable of producing bales of different sizes. So scratch that mod. The next mod I wanted to talk about was precision farming. Then we got word from Giants that precision farming was coming to Farming Simulator 22 either at the end of this year or beginning of next year. So we'll leave that mod off the list as well, and we'll do a complete how-to video on precision farming when it gets released, as it's supposed to have several improvements over the 19 version. So that brings us to heavy equipment and the Borgo pack. First, by heavy equipment, what I mean is there were several items in 19 that were much bigger than they are in 22. Plows, for example. We had a 10.5 meter plow. Yes, it required 550 horsepower, but we do have those tractors in 22, so pulling it wouldn't be a problem. It allows you to cover twice as much ground as either the Lambkin or the 6.2 meter plow, which is the next one up. Different brand name in 22, but essentially it's still a 6 meter plow. The 10.5 meter Gregoire Bisson plow was great for big fields that needed plowing after corn. The other items we had that were very handy for big fields were we had the Bednar 18.2 meter cultivator and the FlexiCoil 24 meter cultivator. These made short work of even the biggest fields. So those are missed in Farming Simulator 22. For those of you not familiar with the heavy equipment that came with the Borgo pack, let's take a quick look. The Borgo pack came with 2 large seeders, the first being 23.2 meters in width. It had an air cart that was towed behind it, just like the one we were looking at the screen before, and carried a combination of seed and fertilizer with a total amount of 33,475 liters. You could cover a lot of ground fairly quickly with the seeder. Same with the next one up. This one is 30.5 meters. And along with the air cart that goes with it, at 45,810 liters of seed and grain, it'll make short work of even the biggest fields. Finally, the other item we missed from the Borgo pack is the weeder or the harrow. The base size of this weeder was 21.3 meters, which is just over double the 10 meter weeder we have in game right now in 22. If you needed that little bit of extra coverage because you had a really big field or big fields you wanted to cover quickly, you could extend the size of this weeder to 27.4 meters. Let's have a quick look at that. There we go. As you can see, that's definitely double the size of the Trefler weeder that comes standard in 22 and came standard in 19. I used this mechanical weeder all the time because it covered so much ground, and you could get your fields weeded before they moved on to the next growth stage. Next up, I want to talk about Easy Development Controls, which was a mod that allowed you to have access to development commands without actually having to use the developer console, which I don't have enabled, but it's very confusing and takes a while to learn. Easy Development Controls simplified that and gave you access to all sorts of features. For example, you could add and remove money. Let's say you wanted to demonstrate a new combine you just purchased, add in the amount of money you wanted, buy the combine, demonstrate it, make your video, and away you go. You're short of wheat, especially let's say in 22 where maybe you want to demonstrate a production chain. You could tip anywhere from 1,000 to 100,000 liters of wheat, barley, oats, other crops onto the ground, and then put them into your production chain or facility you wanted to demonstrate. You could add cheap wheat and stuff into silos. You could add straw, cotton, hay bales. Agreed, you'd have to add them one at a time. You could do the same thing with wool. If you want to demonstrate how the wool production facility works, but you don't have any sheep on your farm yet. These are all great tools for influencers and people making videos, or people who just want to test out how quickly a production facility works and what the input requirements are. Next up, it would allow you to change the time of the day, change the weather. So 6 o'clock in the morning, your crops are ready to harvest, but the light's not very good for making a video. Change the time to 1 o'clock in the afternoon, or even noon. Hit the check button, and there we are, we're at noon. You can fly around the map. The most important or most valuable function I found here was you can turn super strength on or off. Speed multiplier was how quickly you can move across the ground. And extra time scale. Right now, we can have time in Farming Simulator 22 set to 0.5 all the way up to 200 times. With these development controls, you can speed up that, which speeds up the maximum amount of time which passes. So, for example, in Farming Simulator 19 in this game, I can speed up time from 1 times all the way up to 2,000 times. Next up, you can also change your fields and the status of your fields. For example, let's say here we have field 6 selected and we want to seed it with oats. We'll change the growth state to 6 because that was fully grown. Set your fertilizer state, your weeds, and various other parameters you wanted to test. Hit the check mark, and all of a sudden field 6 is fully grown with a crop of oats. You could then harvest that field without changing any other functions. You can change that back to barley, hit the check mark again, harvest the field of barley, and you could compare the amount of product you got out of each field. Very handy for basic comparisons. Also very handy if you wanted to check what effect such things as adding lime or not adding lime, having weeds on or off, having no fertilizer, having the fertilizer at 50% or 100%, what effects those would have on yields without having to go through the whole growth cycle. Finally, we have the vehicle menu, which allowed us to do various things with vehicles. You could set the operating time. You could reset it back to 0 hours, or you could set it to 10,000 hours. In 19, it turned out that operating time had no effect on the vehicle condition, as you may have thought it would. What did have an effect on the vehicle was the amount of dirt. So you could change the dirt from 0, being the cleanest, all the way up to 1, where the vehicle's completely dirty. And you can also change the wear amount from 0 to 1. So from completely fixed to completely broken. This way you could see what effect a vehicle with its maintenance all the way at the bottom, or an implement, had on performance. So that's the easy development controls looked at. Next up, we have the Disable Camera Collision mod. If you've been backing a tractor into a shed in 22 or even base game 19, you know that the camera will often collide with that object. In this case, a shed, or if you're driving down a road and you go under the railroad bridge, the camera would either bounce up or bounce down rather than driving straight through that object, completely changing your view. A little bit annoying because then you have to reset your view to the way you wanted it. With collision disabled, You can get in your vehicle, you can scroll out and scroll all the way back in without the camera hitting the shed. This is very handy because you can, as I said, now keep your view the way you want it to. Smaller shed, even tighter view. I would be colliding either with this object behind me or the shed walls. What I can do with it disabled is I can just keep my view the way I want, make sure I drive cleanly out of the shed, and then I can drive to wherever I want to go. Very handy mod. And here we go, let's stop. Next up we have the Follow Me mod. I'm not going to go into too much detail on this one because it's sort of been addressed in 22, but not fully. In 22 you have the improved AI workers. You can tell a tractor that's parked at the dealership that you want it to drive to your farm, and you want an AI worker to do it because you're busy doing something else. This works most of the time, but depending on the layout of the roads or what's in the way, you may get unable to complete command error message. Follow Me, it basically allowed you to take two vehicles and tell the rear one that you wanted to follow the vehicle in front, and as long as you didn't have a tractor that drove at 32 miles an hour and expected a tractor driving at 19 miles an hour to keep up, the tractor behind and any implement attached to it would simply, there we go, we see the next one moving, would simply follow you all the way to the target. No error messages. So, like I said, I'm on the fence about this one. If they improve the AI commands for workers, then we have no need for this mod. Or not nearly as much of a need for this mod as we would otherwise. You could do a couple of other different things with this. You could have the vehicle follow you at an offset, so to your side. Kind of handy if you were driving a combine and you wanted a grain cart to follow to your left so you could unload into that grain cart. I find it just as easy to have a worker drive the combine. I drive the grain cart and I keep up beside the combine. Next up we have the Horse Help mod. Don't have any horses on this particular map, but the Horse Helper mod was very useful for people that wanted to raise horses. In 19 and in 22, you'd place your horse pen by, let's say, 10 horses with the aim of increasing the health of those horses to the point where they were worth more money and you could turn around and sell them for a profit. That meant you had to ride them. I think it was 5 real minutes per horse. And then you had to groom them. So let's say you had 10 horses at 5 minutes a horse. That's 50 real-time minutes, so almost an hour where you could be doing something else. Horse Helper mod, basically you paid somebody to come along, ride those horses, exercise them and groom them so the value would go up each day. I believe the charge was $300 a day per horse, which when you were taking a horse all the way up to its resale value in 19 of $50,000, you'd still make a nice tidy profit. So that's the horse helper mod. Next up, we're going to take a look at the real dirt mod. This was very handy. As we know, all tractors in game, combines and other vehicles, all generate dirt as they work. Depending on the speed you have the dirt set at, it'll either be slow, medium, or fast accumulation of dirt. I tend to keep it at slow because dirt accumulates fairly quickly anyway. What the real dirt mod does is it changes it from just this plain dirt texture to the actual texture of the area you're working in. So back to our seeder. As you can see, the tracks and the wheels on the seeder are white because we're working in a field that's just been lined. This tractor over here, the 350, has just finished doing some grass work, and as you can see, the tires have got a green tinge for them from the grass. I find that much more believable than just having a plain mud dirt texture. This brings us to our next mod that I found very handy, which is the Insta Wash. You can take your tractor or your combine to your pressure washer at your main farm or another area, and you can pressure wash it clean, no problem. What the Instant Wash mod allows you to do is press the insert button and everything comes clean. See, the combine's clean and the header's clean. So it does wash both the tractor or the main engine and any implements attached to it. I find it useful for making videos. And depending on the farm, it was also useful for if you had 20 tractors that needed washing. You could just tap through them and wash them very quickly. Might not be the most realistic thing, but it's very handy and great, especially if you make videos. Next up, we had the Lumberjack mod, which just made forestry that little bit much easier. It extended the distance you could cut a tree at. Oh, and for some reason that one did not like being cut. Never seen it do that before, but it put the tree all the way over there. And then you delimb the tree as usual, and you can come along and you can use your chainsaw instead of having to get a separate item to do it. You could use your chainsaw, and of course it's not going to do it because I did this wrong. You can use your chainsaw to get rid of the stump. So no need for a stump grinder. Along the same vein, you had the Lizard T-Rex 600. This was a really, really useful mod because it allowed you to get rid of trees even easier than the Lumberjack mod. See, just drive up to a tree and it's gone, and it took care of the stump this time. Sometimes it doesn't take care of the stump, but if it doesn't take care of the stump, all you have to do is drive back and forwards over the area and the stump will disappear. So as you can see, in a matter of seconds, I've cleared a nice section of my forest here. without having to do any work. Yes, you don't get the wood to sell like you normally would, but if you're not concerned about the wood, you just want a nice clean area, this was the vehicle to do it with. Hopefully they will bring this mod back. I believe it was Black Sheep Modding that made it. Hopefully they will bring this mod back for 22 sooner than later, because while I find the decorations from the trees in 22 to be very pretty, they are also placed so that they get in the way, especially of your workers. Workers will miss part of the fields because they don't want to go too close to the trees, or they'll turn around too short because there's a tree at the end of the field. It would be nice to have something like this where you could just drive up, delete the tree. Alright, next up we have the Place Anywhere mod. This mod would allow you to, for the most part, place an object where you normally wouldn't be able to. For example, if I tried to place this barn here without the mod, I would get a collision error and it wouldn't let me place it there. I'd have to move it away back to an area that I own that was clear of any collision objects. This is handy too, depending on the terrain you're working with, because you may want something right up close. They maybe not quite touching, but close, so that you could make it look realistic, like the two buildings are supposed to be together. This would also allow you to place an object on land you don't own. I don't own this forestry area on this map, but as you can see, it's green and it will let me put that object there. Okay. Next up, store deliveries. Again, this mod is kind of somewhere in the middle. In 22, you can use the AI to pick up a vehicle or an implement from the dealership and drive it to your farm, while you continue working on the project you wanted to. However, let's say I wanted a new plow or a new cultivator, and I don't want to have to send the tractor all the way to the dealership, then go to the dealership, hook it up, put it back on the AI, work it, drive it back to the area I want it to. What store deliveries allowed you to do was set where you wanted the item to be delivered to, and for a small delivery cost of 3%, you could have that item delivered to where you are. Let's see, what do we want? We don't have, where are the manure spreaders? Loading wagons. We'll use a fertilizer spreader as an example. We need a fertilizer at this farm to take care of the grass fields and the other fields, so we don't have to drive the spreader all the way from farm 1 to farm 2. So we can customize it. We can either lease it or buy it. Either which way, it will still get delivered to where you want to. Hit buy, yes. And there it is, right where we place the circle. Now, yeah, you still have to fill it, but there's a lime station not too far from here, so I don't have to worry about that. Once you're done, and you want to make sure that you don't get any more items delivered to this location, you simply do the opposite. Instead of Alt-Shift-S, you press Alt-Shift-R to reset, and items will now appear at the store like they normally do. The final mod we're going to take a look at today is variable spray usage mod. Right now, because I have precision farming installed, This manure spreader will automatically determine how much manure to put down on the field to get the best yield. In the base game, anyone who's played 19, I haven't got to manure yet in 22, but I know from 19, a manure spreader would go through manure like crazy. You'd get maybe quarter of an average field done, have to go back to the farm, refill, go back, get another quarter done. It was a constant loop of going back and forth to the farm. We'll deactivate the automatic application rate, and as you can see, by pressing K and M, we can change how much manure is applied at a time. So with precision farming on, instead of liters, it's displayed as tons per hectare. So the base amount we can display here is spread here, sorry, is 2.9 tons per hectare. And we can increase that to 5.7, 8.6, 11.4 tons per hectare. This works on manure spreaders, slurry tankers, seeders, fertilizer spreaders, and lime spreaders. Lime is also another product that you go through like crazy in the base game. So you could reduce the amount of lime that was being spread. You could actually do a field or two with a full lime spreader. We're talking the big one, like the one in front of us, without having to constantly go back to the lime station to refill. So I found that to be a very, very useful mod. So those are the mods that I think need to be converted from Farming Simulator 19 and brought into Farming Simulator 22. I know there are a couple of other different lists out there of people's favorite mods, but sound off in the comments and let me know what mods you like and what you think should be the next mods brought into Farming Simulator 22 from Farming Simulator 19. Thanks for watching, and remember to keep it between the rows. Farmer J, signing off.